dancer and a flash dancer, and he's got a laptop. Would you please welcome Adam Archibald?
Good day, everyone. Good day. Yeah, that's better, isn't it? It's a pleasure to be here. Great pleasure. I want to thank you, Research England, for inviting me. And I also want to congratulate you for your 5th anniversary. I have been all over and I haven't seen any other UFO organization as old as yours. So it's really a pleasure to be here. Your anniversary is something that we don't happen to have every day. Now, before I go on, I should beg your pardon and beg for your tolerance to understand my English. Oh, thank you. But it's not been easy for me to understand what you people talk as well. I have taken some very intensive course of the good and the bad words in Aussie English from my friends Glennis and George McKay. So I'm a bloody prepared to speak in this conference. All right. So thank you very much for your understanding. Well, my friends, in the brochure there is written that I'll speak about the Virginia case. Now I'll do that just after I speak about this material that I brought to you all the way from Brazil. It's been a long flight, and it's a great material. It's about UFOs in the Amazon. It has been put together by me with cooperation of several UFO researchers down in Brazil. We have a team of people who are connected to the Brazilian UFO magazine for quite some time. We are 22 years on the road, and we are on edition 128, and so far we have gathered over 1,000 people working directly and indirectly in the country for the Brazilian UFO magazine, as a volunteers, of course. 300 of them are very good, very active UFO research, I believe. And I'm glad that they have come up with lots of great information, great stories about the action of aliens in Brazil, and in one particular part of it, in the Amazon. Now, you're going to see something that's going to probably shock you, another thing that will make you wonder, what are they doing here and why? No one can see my face? I can't see that.
Aren't they lucky?
Now, let's try to work this on a different technique. Is that okay now? But I'm afraid this kid fell down in time. Okay, right. You could have some silver tape. Okay, anyway, let's speak about UFOs in the Amazon. Of course, you all know the Amazon is in great danger because of the negligence of our authorities. I'm afraid to say they don't take care of the rainforest as it's supposed to be. So whatever you heard in news about the destruction of the Amazon, you multiply by 3, by 5, and you get a pretty idea of what's going on. We are having the forest being destroyed gradually, yearly, year after year. Number of trees are going down. But anyway, we still have lots of UFO sightings over there. And in most cases, and this is very interesting, in most cases of Brazil, wherever you go, and especially over the Amazon, when you go to some areas and you talk to people about this thing that we like so much to research, UFOs, of course they won't tell you about unidentified flying objects. They don't know the terms. Ultra-dimensional spaceships or whatever. But if you talk then in very common language, in very popular and formal language, about strange lights in skies, strange phenomena, objects shining that come to the ground, land, strange people being seen, you will get lots of histories. Perhaps in in anywhere you go, if you talk to 10 people, for example, all the 10 will tell you that they have stories about this phenomenon. It's much unlikely that you won't find people who has no experience whatsoever to tell you. And probably out of 10, you also will have like 3 or 4 who are going to tell you, oh yes, I've seen this many, many times. So this is a very popular, I should say, phenomenon down there in Brazil, especially in the Amazon area. And the interesting thing is that the UFO phenomenon generates folklore. Now people has to assign to this multiple ways that the UFO phenomena manifestates different myths and legends. You will see some of them right now. Now this is a beautiful place that is flooded like 4 to 6 months every year. So places where used to be cities or villages just like that one. Sorry for that. All right. Just make sure that it doesn't go down. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick. Thank you. All right. Okay. Now, one of the most interesting legends that we have in the Amazon, perhaps you've heard of that, is the one related to a kind of a river dolphin, which we call boto. Now the botos is a fish, right? There are 2 types of them, the pink one and the black one. The pink one is so beautiful that it's connected to a few legends, few myths of our folklore. Now, this myth is very interesting. Now, that's the pink dolphin you see there. Some people, they catch them for research and evaluation. Very few people actually catch them to eat because it's considered to be something very, very rude and brings you bad luck. Anyway, the boto sometimes is put guilty for things that have been done by other kind of people. Now, when there is a party in some villages by the rivers in the Amazon, and a few weeks later, a girl gets pregnant with a starting belly, a too big belly, they will say, that has been the boto who impregnated me. Now, this is a folklore, but this has the UFO phenomenon behind it, because now, if you take away from the cases in which the girl is just hiding who is the responsible for the pregnancy, probably a boyfriend or someone who she just met, in some other cases, actually, they report missing time. And when they get back, after a few weeks, they found themselves to be pregnant. And then they say this is the boto. Because the boto and its nature of being pink and being like sacred for the natives, it's believed that it comes out of the water when there is a nice party, comes out of the water and goes to the party dressed as a man and gets the most beautiful girls and takes them and impregnates them. In some places where you go in the Amazon, probably you find people like small kids. If you ask them, who is your mother? They'll tell you the name of the mother. And who's your father? Oh, my father is the boto. Now, in those cases, of course, the father is a human being just like any one of us who had sexual intercourse with the mother. But in the other cases, in which the pregnancy is preceded by missing time, and it also has been assigned, is being guilty of the boto, in those cases, we have the genuine UFO phenomenon behind it. Because the girls that were impregnated, eventually, after a few weeks of pregnancy, they lose their fetuses. They're gone. One day they are pregnant, the other day they're not. Now, doesn't it remind you of 2 cases that we have in the United States and Europe, perhaps here in Australia, of pregnancy related to the UFO phenomenon? Sure. And there is another myth generated with pregnancies, the strange pregnancies of beautiful women, that is in the same continent, in South America, but it's about like 8,000 kilometers south. That's the legend of the Trauco. The Trauco in southern Chile is also a creature just like that, but from the Kentucky case, that is believed to watch, to observe the girls from the top of the trees, always from the top, and take the most beautiful of them and impregnates them, but they never deliver any baby. They have their pregnancies terminated on a mysterious way. Now, these two legends, one that belongs to the Brazilian folklore, the Amazonian folklore, and the other one that belongs to the southern Chilean folklore, are very similar, and they are apart from each other by 8,000 kilometers. It's just an example, because if you go talk to people anywhere in the Amazon, they will come up with strange names for the UFOs. They'll say like big worm or big snakes, but objects like this that they can be seen anywhere all over the villages. I'm sorry. Here, just punched the wrong button. Okay? Like the big snake or the big worm. Now, it's very common that people in the rivers of the Amazon, and there are so many, and so many islands, and lots of small villages all over, of people very isolated. People who don't have TV, barely have a radio, who just have a few neighbors, who go to a larger town, let's say, once a year or something. It's very common to them to come up with names for also the phenomena, the light phenomena that they see while navigating in those rivers. They will call them space ghosts that will haunt the rivers. They can be spherical, cylindrical, balls, disc-shaped, whatever. In some cases, they call them ghost ships because they are so close to the level of the water in the rivers that you can actually get closer to them. Some cases that I have covered of that, and a few of my colleagues have investigated also, have strange stories involved. Like one fisherman boat with a few fishermen inside of it during the night, navigating, fishing, doing their job, while they see another, what they call a ghost ship, coming close to them, but they look at them and say, well, that ship was much more beautiful than ours. It was silver-like. It has strange people in it with big hats looking at us, very interested in what we're doing. In some cases, the fishermen, the Amazon fishermen, have given to the crew of that other spaceship that they call the ghost ship fishes. Just give them. So the contact is close and happens on a regular basis to most people. Now, this is the kind of person we're talking about. Fishermen like this gentleman, who's, by the way, he's holding one of the largest river fishes that we have in the world, which is also under extinction. It's called the pirarucu. Can you say that? Pirarucu. That's the name of that big fish. Now, it gets sometimes like 2 meters high. It's a very big fish. And they catch it very smoothly, very quietly, with a small rod, and like in that boat that you have over there, depicting 2 people seeing an object like a regular close encounter in the Amazon, and they catch this fish very easily. And after 2 or 3 hours of fight with it, they put it eventually inside the boat, and they take it away. Now it's under extinction now, but this kind of people, fishermen who don't have access to internet, who haven't never heard the expression alien pipeline object, who don't have a cellular phone, don't even have a regular phone. Barely have a TV. Some of them have a TV. All of them have radio because this is the regular means of communication among people in the Amazon is the radio. So most of them, almost all of them have. Now this is the kind of people that does a perfect witness. Because when you get to talk to them, their stories are totally uncontaminated, unpolluted, crystal clear, and just amazing. Now, you can, of course, guess that they live in very poor conditions. Their houses are made out of bamboo and sand and wood, very poor people. Some families have many members. No, they don't have TV, so they don't have much to do at night, so they do kids. That's what they do. And it's also very common that you reach to a family like this, and you talk to them, and from the small kid to the grandma or the grandpa, all of them have stories to tell you. It's very unlikely that you will find a family like this, and they won't have any story whatsoever to tell you. And sometimes they just to give a damn about what they have seen. They think that, well, it has happened, like a ball of light coming to the house, sometimes landing, sometimes irradiating the whole perimeter with very bright light or something like that. Happens so many times in their lives that most people think, well, this is a natural thing. This is something that we don't have to talk about. So if you go to talk to them, some of them will treat it as a simple thing in their life, as a regular thing that happened in their lives. It's very interesting. Now, have in mind that these people in Amazon, despite their isolation from each other, are very religious people. Most of them Catholics. And they have those religious parades and everything. They believe in the Virgin Mary. They pray for Jesus. They are Catholic, regular Catholic, but it doesn't interfere with what they believe that are those objects that have been seen. And among the best witnesses that we have found in Amazon are, amazingly, some native people from tribes, people who still live in their Indian village, their tribes, their Indian nations, as we call them, who get even rituals dedicated to the UFO phenomenon, as I will show to you in a few minutes. Now, meet some of the Amazonian people, like this girl. I took these people, this picture back like 3 or 4 years ago. This river, I was in a boat with the guy taking care of the engine of the boat. And we stopped in this island and saw this young girl washing dishes. I took these pictures and said, I'm going to show it everywhere I go because this is the kind of purity, this is the kind of beauty in these people that I want to show in my lectures. This is the kind of people, like her mother, her father, her older brothers and sisters, grandparents, that had experiences to tell to us. Now, Amazon is also a privileged place for archaeological sites. Many of the Indian nations, the native Indians that still live there, in the past had their ancestor in some kind of close encounter with space visitors. And the results of those encounters with the space visitors were reported through the most common way that we have all over the world. Like you have here in Australia, there are many places in Europe, there are many places in Africa, in Sahara. Here you have the Waginas. Here in Brazil we have something similar, which is the drawing by our ancestor of how they met sometime in the past strange creatures that came in big balls of light. And sometimes the drawings that they made, like 13,000, 14,000 years ago, as dated by the carbon-14. The drawings that they make of the spaceship and the people that they met is just same drawings that you could get from the eyewitness of a UFO sighting that happened, let's say, last week here in Queensland. For some reason, these people that are visiting us now seems to be the same people that has been visiting us since the beginning of all times and all over the world. These are some more prehistoric evidence of alien presence. These are drones made by natives, dated like, these ones were dated like 1600 years ago. Now, speaking about mysteries, probably you've heard or read that there are pyramids hidden somewhere in the Amazon. Haven't you? Have you read? All right. They actually exist. Now, pyramids have been built by our ancestors all over the planet. We have them in Europe. We have them in China. We have them in Central America. We have in South America. Not only in Egypt, but all over the world, including the Amazon rainforest. It was discovered, at least 3 of them, 3 pyramids were discovered in the Amazon, close to the border between the states of Pará and Amapá, right in the heart of the rainforest, by this gentleman who is an archaeologist called Professor Roldão Brandão. This gentleman announced like 15 years ago that he had found, after a long search, pyramids in that location. And after he found that, he went silent. We haven't heard of him since. I don't know what's going on with this man. A few years ago, I ran a very, very thorough search to see if we can find him. Where is his whereabouts? And I returned with nothing. Nobody has ever heard of him since before the year 1994. Disappeared. But the pyramids are there. The problem is that to get to that location, it involves a lot of efforts. Because remember, we're talking about very thick rainforest. Very thick. There are hundreds and hundreds of forests that you have to go through to reach that precise point. Now, the cases in the Amazon are so curious that a man, call him a visionary or what, but actually he's a great businessman, and he decided to build a hotel in the jungle, and it's there. It's called Ariaú Towers. Now, this picture is 3 or 4 years old. There are more towers in the jungle. Sometimes when it's flood, rivers are very at their limit. Most of it are underwater. But even then you can have an idea. And I'm showing you this because the sightings of UFO in that area, and this hotel is located in an island, in a place called Anavilhanas, which is about 70 to 80 kilometers upriver, the Amazon River, from the major city of the state of Amazonas called Manaus. It's like a 5 or 4 hours boat until you reach that island where this place is. Now the island is surrounded by a few people who live there, and they have seen so many UFOs that the businessman decided to put this hotel over there. And he built this, what he calls a landing site for flying saucers. It's written over there, welcome, benvenuto, sea bem-vindo, willkommen, in several languages. Well, as far as I know, no UFO have landed there so far, but they have landed everywhere else in the jungle. Now let me show you some of the cases that I have investigated lately. I have 5 examples. They are taken out of random, like I picked them because each one of them has a particularity that I wanted to show you. They just represent a huge variety of cases that are presently in the Amazon, and anybody can go there and investigate. You can go there and investigate because they are there, and people are very open to talk to anyone who comes making questions. If you speak the language and if you speak easy with them, because they kind of get frightened when you speak too complicated. So you have to go there and talk to them in a proper manner, in a proper way, so they will be open to you and you're going to get home to Australia with great stories. Anyway, the first case is the one involving a woman, Luisa Nascimento de Moraes, who lives by the Negro River, the Black River, which is one of the largest Amazonian river affluents. She lived in that house. Now let me tell you how I got to her. I decided to get this boat and spend a couple of days going up and down the river. And whenever I saw a house, I said, let's go to that house. Now we parked our boat. Park? Is that park? Is a right expression? Park boat? Okay. We parked our boat over there, took pictures, decided to go in and talk to them and see what they have to tell us. This is what I did. Now, look at the house that I just went, where Luisa Nascimento de Moraes, is a woman in his 60s, lived. Now, that's Luisa over there, with her 4th husband. She buried the other 3. She's a tough woman. Tough woman. But very nice. And she has the story of what I call a walk-in. Now, one day, she was at the kitchen of her house. You can see there are no glass over the kitchen, right? The houses are very poorly done. It's in the middle of the jungle. She's living like 100 kilometers from the nearest city. Only goes there like once a year, perhaps twice a year. So she's very isolated. Only have that radio that I told you about. Anyway, she was washing dishes or something in her kitchen. When she looked through the window of the kitchen at the jungle, and she saw something that attracted her attention. That was a creature using a uniform, a suit, an entire silver uniform, from feet to the neck, with a helmet. She thought, well, that may be military or something strange. She smelled some different odor. And that gentleman was walking. It doesn't matter, there were a few brushes here and there, stones, whatever. She just walked like he was floating. And he eventually walked, and came close to the house. Now, see, this is the house wall, right? When he hit it, he wasn't stopped by it. He wasn't detained. He started walking the walls. Just like there was no gravity whatsoever. She started walking the walls. He started walking the walls. And she went outside, just like where she is right now, and looked at it. And the fellow just jumped on the roof, over the roof of the house. And she looked a little up, and there was this disc-shaped object with some sound like a... It came closer to the roof of the house. The chappy fellow jumped in the object, and it went away. Just one example of the case of that. Now, here is she, next to the monkey. I mean, the monkey is that one here on her hand, right? The other one is the 4th husband. Right? Here is she, a very brave woman. I want to meet her again. I'm going to Amazon in a few months from now, and it's going to be very hot there, but I don't care. I'm going there. I want to meet her again. I guess that in the last 3 or 4 years that we met, she has some other very interesting stories. So this one that I just told you is one among many that she told me while I was there. I picked it up to put in this lecture and to bring to you and to present to other places where I've been. So let's go to the second case, which is also one that I picked it up because it's an example of what's going on in the Amazon. This case involves a man who shot at a UFO. Nailson Araújo de Moraes. Well, okay, that's Nailson and a few of his kids. Now, I told you, these people don't have TV, so they make kids. He lives in Anavilena Islands. And one day, after seeing so many strange balls of light during the day, during the night, doing noise, without noise, coming closer, staying away, doesn't matter. He's seen so many cases that one particular night, he saw that object, that peculiar object, coming closer and said, well, let's do some shooting here. And he went inside the house, got his shotgun, let's see what happens. Boom! And tried to shoot at that. Nothing happened. And she got it again, and another one, another shot. And then another shot. And he eventually realized that there was no point in shooting that. He was only wasting shells. So he gave up. The object kept there for a few more minutes, then he went away. Just as simple as that. And if you go talk to other people in other villages, in other houses, by the Amazon or in all areas of Brazil as well, you probably will find people who have also shot at UFOs and got no response. In a few cases, however, in the south of the country, people that shot at UFOs got the bullet back. One of them got the bullet back in his knee. And because he didn't treat it well, in the next day, he had to cut it off. He was guilty for that because he wasn't supposed to shoot at the objects. But anyway, ignorance is something that we all over the world share, right? It's not happening only in Brazil, it's happening all over the world. Now, see, the United States has had a policy from the 60s to the middle 70s of shooting UFOs. It was stupid because lots of pilots lost their lives while shooting you at UFOs with heavy weaponry, and they were shot back and they would be destroyed. Anyway, let's go to the third case, which is my preferred one. It's a very interesting case that happened to the man called Abdon Ferreira Siqueira. Now, once again, I picked that case out of a random, just an example. I parked my boat right there. This is a little scale for people going up. I parked my boat up there. And of course, there's a church in that village. There's a small village called Village of St. Thomas. And everywhere you go in the Amazon, probably everywhere you go in the world, you find a church, probably Catholic, right? Now, some people say that the CIA or the former KGB or perhaps NASA are the institution who most know the UFO phenomenon. I say no. I believe that the institution who most knows about the UFO phenomenon is the Vatican. Because for hundreds of years, they have their missionaries, they have their people, they have their small or big churches in every corner of this teeny planet. And if you live in a place like in the village of St. Thomas over there, and you happen to see a strange ball of light or a disc-shaped structured one during the day, who are you going to talk to? To your priest. And this has been going on and on and on forever. And of course, all this information has been very thoroughly taken care of, has been noted, has been sent to someone who has been analyzed. Reports come from Indonesia, from the Amazon, from Peru, from whatever, Guinea. And then someone at the Vatican has to be putting this information together and saying, oh, it's very good. There's a strange phenomenon going on all over the world. We have to be aware of it. And maybe part of the duties of their missionaries, and Chris maybe collect information about this phenomenon. At least in Brazil, this is what I'm telling you. Now let's go to the Abdon. This is Abdon. You wouldn't say, but he's about 80. Can you believe that? So if you want to live that long, you have to go to Abdon. That man was a very healthy man. In his middle 70s, he's got a B8 right now. I spoke with him like 3 or 4 years ago. And he lived in this beautiful place, the village of St. Thomas. And his story is like this. One night, he had his wife sick. He didn't know what to do. Her parents lived on the other side of the Amazon River. So where he is right now, it's not the Amazon River. This is just a small branch, what we call a Paraná. He didn't have any engine boat, just a paddling boat, an aluminum-like boat. So he thought, I'm going to have to take my wife to her parents on the other side of the Amazon River to see if they can help her. And he eventually got the wife in the boat, some pills here and there, some coal, whatever, and he started paddling. It was during the night, paddling, some 10 kilometers down there until he reached the Amazon River, which is so far away from the other margin. It's so large that sometimes you can't even see the other side. Not at that particular place. It was like 6 or 7 kilometers wide, and he had to pedal. And all of a sudden, during the crossing, a strange ball of light, very bright, started approaching, and eventually came close and stayed over the boat, illuminating all the surrounding areas. He could even see fishes jumping out the water, as they do when you have bright lights. And he was paddling. He could feel the heat, the hot emanating from the object. So the wife was desperate. He was desperate. Of course, he started paddling a little faster now. And when he got to the other side of the river, guess what? The wife was healed. Was entirely okay. Was cured. Mysteriously. She was very bad a couple of hours before. But for some reason, maybe because of that light, some energy emanated from that object, she was healed. That's a very peculiar case. And it's not the only one. There are several other cases in which people, just being close to objects, have been healed. Now, I don't have much time to talk, but if you ask me during lunchtime or tomorrow, during dinner tonight, I'm going to tell you other stories that are related with healing. Produced in some way, mysterious ways, by the approach of UFOs, including of a kid who had hydrocephaly and was told by his doctor, his parents were told by his doctor that he only had a few weeks of life, and after, well, I'm already telling the story, but anyway, after they had a close encounter, very close encounter, the car where they were chased so close by this object during 60 kilometers that the boy eventually started getting better and better and better. In a matter of months, he was entirely cured. He is now, it happened a long time ago, about 15, 18 years ago. He's now a graduate student in medicine in the University of São Paulo. There you go. Anyway, another case. Again, an example of what happened over there. Now, this case that happened close to the city of Manaus, which is a large city in the Amazon, happened to Raimundo Picanso and his family. Now, at that time, the family were only the wife and the young daughter. They were taken by the sheep that would come to the farm on a regular basis, but would take them not all the time that it came. Just a few of the times when it came, they were taken. Some other times, the object would come, they would look at it, become afraid, and then the object will go away. They have missing time. They have all the things that we have heard during the last years about abductions. This is very interesting. Now, the third case, before I go to something even deeper than that, happened to this gentleman who used to be a truck driver in the south of Brazil, and also a player, a guitar player, who gave up everything and decided to live in the Amazon, in that house that you see over there. This picture was taken last August when I was at the Amazon by the last time. And Jose Rodriguez is his name. He and his wife went out of his house one particular night. He couldn't get his sleep, so his wife got asleep, and they went outside the house and over a river that's in front of where he is. There's a river. He saw an object coming from the water and dancing lights coming from different positions, coming here, going there, doing all sorts of maneuvers very beautifully, like a ballet of lights. Now, this is something common. We have this every day. But what is interesting in this case is that the man, when I talked to him, he said, "Hey, AJ, the thing about that lights is that a few of the lights emanating from the objects were or had colors that I have never seen before in my entire life." Now think about that, my friends. Think about a color that you have never seen in your life. That's not purple, not green, not blue, not yellow, not orange, not red, not brown, no nothing. Can you? Can we think of a color that we have never seen before? Now, this kind of thing has been reported in association with the UFO phenomenon for quite some time. Colors that, for some reason, don't exist on Earth. And they have been seen in conjunction with objects in several places. Now, what are these objects doing in general? Helping to protect the environment? If that's the case, they are not being very successful, because our government is much more power to destroy than anybody else. Perhaps they are interested in our natural resources. I don't know. We can only guess. Only guess. Most of the cases in which the UFO phenomenon is involved are friendly or neutral, but a few of them were hostile. Now, this picture of a disc-shaped UFO was taken over the Amazon in 1976 during a Varig flight, which is a company that doesn't exist anymore, or is almost broken, from Manaus to Belém. These two cities are only reachable, actually Manaus is only reachable through boat or plane. There's no other way you can get there. Belém, which is about 2,000 kilometers away, is reachable also by road. But the main communication system among those two cities is by boat. Lots of people do this boat trip because it's a beautiful trip, takes like 4 or 5 days. And during that trip, in those big boats, sometimes one of them sink, lots of people die, unfortunately. Then in those ships, lots of people have reported seeing objects. The captains of those boats, the people who take care, the crew, and even the passengers. It's very interesting. Now, if we have the friendly contacts, like the one that happened to Abdul and his wife who was killed, we also have, I'm afraid, attacks in the jungle. And this is the hardcore of the UFO phenomenon in the Amazon, the attacks. Now, these attacks, they happen mostly when those balls of light would come close to the people while they are alone, while they are in groups, in villages. Doesn't matter where they are. They would come close And from the ball of light, a beam of light gets off and is directed to the witness, who becomes a victim, just like a laser beam. And some people have been harmed, burned, fainted because of that, and also killed, unfortunately. Those cases start being reported in the Amazon. And because of the victims, in most cases, would faint and would be found only hours or days later with an anemic status, like they're missing blood, like their blood had been taken, part of it, some of it had been taken. They start calling the phenomenon with the Brazilian name of chupa-chupa. Now, chupa means suck. Suck, suck. That's the phenomenon, how they call it. That comes a suck, they say to each other. Or that comes the suck, suck. Because the object is believed, and in most cases it's for real, that it extracts blood or something beyond blood that we don't know what it is from the victim. Now, we're talking about hundreds of victims, perhaps thousands. One of them is the young woman, Aurora Fernandes, which is in this picture. I have many others, but this is very interesting because it shows how the attacks were. Most of the people attacked were women, like 60%, 65%. And in most places, in most cases, they will be attacked, the springs of light will hit people, women or men, in the thorax. Sometimes in the neck, sometimes in the arm, a few other times in the rest of the body. But mostly, especially with women, on the breast, on the thorax. Right? Now, in the smaller picture you see how it could happen. A ball of light comes from nowhere. It has the capability of coming through the walls. It doesn't matter if it's a brick wall, it's a wood wall, it comes from the wall. It doesn't recognize doors or windows. It just goes in houses by whenever they decide to. We believe that most of those balls of light were unmanned, but a few of them were men, had occupants, because in some cases occupants have been reported and drawn. Let me get back. Just like in that drawing, the object would look like a can, a giant beer can or soda can, just like that, with those rings in colors in the upper portion and the below portion. A beam of light would come off from the bottom of it and would search the place, search the people, and hit them. And eventually 2 or 3 young fellows would be on the kind of a window on the upper part of it. Now, this is very interesting. Fishermen and natives were most people attacked. During some time, in some villages in the Amazon, where people live from small agriculture and live from fishing, these people started starving because they have no communication with other towns where they could bring food from to their tables. And as the fishermen were afraid of going to the river to fish, and as the people who used to plant anything were afraid to go to the fields to plant, there was no food. They didn't have much to eat anymore. And they became much more suitable as victims because they were fragile and in status of denutrition. Denutrition, you know what I mean? You understand what I mean? Malnutrition. Thanks. Is my English okay? Are you understanding?
Yes.
Sometimes I get excited and I just don't find the words. Despite the efforts of my dear friend here, Dennis McKay, and her husband George, who has been teaching me a few words, including the nasty ones. Despite the effort, I'm still having problems with my English. But this is my limit. I can't go any further than that. I've been here a couple of 10 years ago, and in 1997 again. And I guess that my English has not improved since then. I'm sorry. Everybody has its limits. Okay, this is mine. Anyway, see another two victims. These guys were burned by the Chupa Chupa, the suck suck. Some people call them devices or probes. They're like reconnaissance unmanned and sometimes manned spacecraft. They would come close to the people. They have a few very unusual capabilities. They could enlarge themselves and shrink themselves. And of course, as I told you, they could go through the wall. Now, Newton Cardoso here is one of the persons that we have interviewed that have been burned. So did Coronha, Manuel Matos, who is showing the arm because when he saw the light, he tried to protect himself doing like this, and he was burned all entire his arm. Happens many times. Now this is the village of Colares back in 1977 with Zacaria Barata, one of the guys who also had been attacked, showing the football field where sightings would take place almost on a regular basis. The other picture shows the beach, and that other one, that big one, shows what I mean. Now the ball of light, the beams of light could come through the ceiling, through the roof, through the walls, anywhere. And also the objects themselves will come. Now, this is an image of a documentary that I have here, subtitled in English, so I have only a few more copies, that tried to recover and present to the country what happened in the Amazon during those days. Now you see a family trying to hide from the laser beams that were from all over. It doesn't matter if you are at your house, at a store, a school, a church, whatever, you would be attacked. Now people thought that if they could make big fires in the beaches, this is a river beach, right? If you could make big fire and if all the people in the village stick together, they would be free from the objects. But it didn't happen because those attacks were becoming more frequent and more violent. And as at the beginning they started in the middle of the night with isolate people in isolate houses, a few months later, by July or August or even September 1977, the attacks were performed during broad daylight, 2 p.m., 9 a.m., noon, in the middle of the village. Now people used to hit pans to make all sorts of noise to let everybody know that they're coming in those small places. They ran to the church, and even then, they weren't safe. The priest and a doctor were the only authorities, if you call them authorities, in a small village like that, that decided to stay in the village while the attacks were happening, because even the sheriff, the mayor, and everybody else just decided to leave. Out of a population of a few thousands, 90% of them just went away. Now, this is the city of Belém over there in the small map. That rectangular belongs to that area of the Amazon. And that's a small village next to the Marajó Island where most of the cases happen. It's called Colares. Now, lots of this information have been retrieved by a gentleman that is not even a Brazilian. He's an American, a devoted American, UFO researcher who went to Brazil many times and died a couple of years, the American journalist and researcher Bob Pratt, who had produced a book, UFO Danger Zone in Brazil, which we translated in is Perigo Alienígena no Brasil, which means the same. He was so passionate for ufology, so dedicated, he would go to the areas where most of Brazilian UFO researchers wouldn't go back in the 70s and 80s to investigate the case. We were owed to this gentleman quite a lot of what the Brazilian ufology has now on the attacks in the Amazon. This is why I decided to bring this to you. Now let's talk about the military involvement. And because this thing obviously went out of control, people were frightened, people been hurt, lots of people complaining, authorities are doing nothing to help us. Then the leaders of the small communities where the phenomenon was more prominent decided to go and talk to the people at headquarters of the Brazilian Air Force in that particular area of the Amazon, in the state of Pará, which its capital is Belém. And the Air Force decided to do something. Now what it decided to do was just unprecedented in the history of ufology, at least in Brazil and South America. They decided to launch an official and confidential commission of military to investigate scientifically and militarily the UFO sightings in the Amazon. I'll tell you much more about it in a few minutes after I tell you that most of the cases that happened in the island of Polaris involved victims that were treated by that woman, Velarde Cecim, who is a good friend of mine. Now, that's her now. When the phenomenon was happening in those islands back in 1977, he was only 20-some years old, 23 or 24, just freshly graduated from medicine school in the University of Belém, and her first job was to work in the sanitary and medical station, a very limited, small one, in the island of Polaris. That was her first job. She was a young kid, to say. But she was a brave woman. Oh yeah. Because she treated the patients with such attention, with such care, that she became, in a matter of weeks, loved by everybody. Now, her story and the story that he tells about the people that she treated, she tried to treat at least, is what triggered most of the operations also conducted by the Brazilian Air Force. And she tells that when she arrived to work at that location by July to August 1977, at the first week, it was okay. She had to treat people from common diseases, give them medicines, take them pulses or whatever, this kind of thing, you know. But on the next week, she got a woman coming to the sanitary, to the health station, with a big burn here on her upper breast, and thorax, close to the shoulder. And she looked at that and said, well, it has happened a lot of time ago. Why didn't you come before to see me? And the woman said, no, it just happened now, a few hours ago. That can be, because the flesh was already rotten, necrosed. How do you say? Necrosed?
Necrosis.
Necrosis. Okay, thank you very much. And she said that cannot be, because this is the kind of wound that takes, you know, some time to heal, to get in that state it was. And that woman came, helped by her mates in that location because she couldn't barely walk. She was missing blood. She was very, very weak, and she was treated by Villaggio Cecchini. That was her first case. On the other week, 7 people came with the same wounds. And they all described it that they had been attacked, a bolt of light that would come from the sky, from the woods, sometimes from the water, and would direct laser beam towards them. The other week, over than 30 people. The other week, about 50. And it started to increase exponentially. She didn't know what to do anymore. She ran out of medicines to give them. She didn't have much choice what to do. She saw most of the people leaving the island. Eventually, she had an encounter with that machine, with that probe, with that Shupa phenomena. And this is an animation that, well, actually, this is a film that is included in a documentary made by the Brazilian TV network Globo just last year, showing how it all happened in the Amazon. And I was an advisory for this because I did most of my research on this case. And this is how she describes what happened to her. She was coming from the sanitary unit where she worked, going about at 5 p.m. to her place where he used to rest and sleep, which is only a few blocks from the unit sanitary unit. And she was with someone else, an old lady that would be with her all the time. And he looked at the old lady was looking at the sky and said, "Look, it's coming for us now." And she fainted. When the lady tried to help her, she looked at the sky and saw the object passing. And she thought, "Oh my God, we're going to be attacked now." And everybody in their houses hiding, saying, "Go away from there, doctor, go away from there, doctor, they're going to attack you, they're going to attack you." And she was brave, she didn't move, and she wasn't attacked. And the description that she gave me was that it looked like you're checking to see who is that is treating the victims of us there. It's just amazing. When you hear her telling you that, oh, it's something. It's quite an experience. Probably nowhere else in the world something with that magnitude is happening. Anyway, these are a few other witnesses that came forward just recently to tell about these experiences. Many of them decided not to talk. But even if you go there now, you can find lots who will. And of course, we have a journalist. The first gentleman on the right is journalista Carlos Mendes, who back in 1977 covered most of the cases. And on the other side is a biomedical, and UFO researcher, Daniel Ribisso, who again was one of the guys investigating this case since 1977. Now, when it all started to get ugly by July, August, and the Brazilian Air Force decided to put an operation to investigate it, they asked the man to perform that investigation. And they wanted this operation of investigating UFOs in the Amazon to be secret. So they came out with the name that would be kind of a secret. They will call this Operation Saucer. Very smart. Very smart. They wanted that to be a secret. And the scientists were all over. 90% of the population decided to go away from the island. Now this is this man, Coronel William G. Bolivar, Soares, Nogueira, Yolanda, Lima. Now, this is a hell of a long name even for Brazilians. Right? So in short, he was Wirangê Holanda. Now, that small picture is when he was a captain. And he was chosen by his commander because he was one of the most decorated, one of the bravest officers in the Air Force in that part of Brazil by that time. Wirangê Holanda had Indian blood in his vein. He was a brave man. He was the chief of the search and rescue service by parachute over the Amazon. He was the guy who jumped in the Amazon jungle in parachutes. If there was some kind of danger, somebody lost, some airplane crashed or something. That's what he is. And he also believed in UFOs. So he was asked by his superior, Brigadier Protásio, and he was sent to establish a mission to investigate UFOs in the Amazon. Now, of course, those weren't the words precisely. Brigadier Protásio asked him to come up with a few men of his entire trust to team up to go to the specific areas in the Amazon, especially the villages and the islands where the phenomenon and attacks had happened more. And their goal, their objectives were clearly stated in the documents of the Operation Saucer, and they were: 1, try to talk to as many witnesses and victims as possible to evaluate entirely the length of this phenomenon. 2nd, try to document the best they could with films and photos and instrumental like radars, the phenomena, in order to find out what is beyond it, who's responsible for this. And 3rd, and it's written in the documentation, official military documentation, if possible, try to engage in a contact with whoever is responsible for those sightings, for those attacks. And he was the man. Now, of course, he wouldn't talk to any one of us UFO researchers. Even in 1997, when the operation were conducted, neither in the other years. I tried to talk to him in 1988, in 1992, in 1994, he wouldn't talk to me. But eventually, in June 1997, I was invited by a TV network in Brazil to speak about the secrets of the Brazilian Air Force, and I already had a lot of documentation with me, and I shown that on Prime TV Sunday night during 15 minutes, and the subtitle said, A.J. Guevara, hunter of official UFO documents about Brazil, other stuff. And I was there showing the documents that I already had. I had over 200 pages by that time. Now I have about 500 pages. You can download them for free. You just punch ufo.com.br and go documents. Click, and you can download them for free, and pictures and everything that you want from UFOs and from the Brazilian Air Force. And they are very pissed off with us because of this. I don't care. Anyway, I watched on TV on that Sunday night, and the man watching it. And he called me the other morning and said, hey AJ, this is Colonel Wirangê Holanda. I almost fell off my chair. I said, what? You're in Holanda? Yes, I am. You've been trying to talk to me. I couldn't talk to you at that time because, you know, I have my obligations with the military, with the Brazilian Air Force. But right now, I got to tell you that you were right by doing what you're doing. And I don't have any obligation whatsoever anymore with the military. And I'm willing to talk. So if you can come to my place, you are welcome. and I give you all the story. And I hung up the phone, called my agent, got a ticket, and flew to Rio de Janeiro. He was living in a city up the state of Rio de Janeiro. I spent a couple of days with him. He became my friend, and he was an admirable man. He was a gentleman. He was a man with great memory, great objectivity, very sincere, who told us, me and my fellow UFO researcher, Marco Antonio Petit, who was with me at that time, during 2 entire days, everything that happened, from A to Z, including very amazing revelations of what happened in the jungle. Now, here you see a few pages of the documentation that I report about. Over 1,000 pages, over 1,000 cases were investigated by them. During the day, the military would talk to the victims, would talk to the witnesses, and during the night, they will do surveillance, sky watches, full of equipment, and they had lots of sightings, lots of them. Over 500 pictures were taken, 16 hours of films. Most of this material is very sensible and came out great, showing the objects, structured ones, large motherships over the Amazon River, but unfortunately, we didn't have them. And when I spoke with William Jolanda, he didn't have anything. And I tell you why in a minute. But we are succeeded to recover at least about 500 pages. These are some pages. Look at that, maps showing the paths of the UFOs in those villages. Done by military. This is not being drawn by civilian UFO researchers like us. These were done by military UFO researcher in a mission, official mission for the Brazilian Air Force. Everything is detailedly. Everything. See the drawings? This is a page, one of the pages of the documentation that shows this disc-shaped object seen on 6 November 1977, 7 p.m. on the island of Polaris. Now you see many of them drawn by military, I insist. Now, when in your lives have you seen reports of UFOs drawn, filled by military, including extraterrestrials, entities like that? This is pretty amazing, isn't it? Amazing. Look at that. More sightings, more sightings. Disc-shaped object, structured one, seen in the beach of Araria, in the city of Santarém, south of the state, about 600 to 700 kilometers south of the island of Polaris. So the phenomenon was all over the Amazon. And the Operation Saucer was focused on some islands and villages close to the Belém area, but also they went much back in further areas, in faraway areas of the Amazon. They covered a lot of terrain. Now this is very interesting. This is what William Jolanda used to call a sport model flying saucer. And this is what started a sort of contact with him. Now, he reported that when he arrived to the places, and he spent most of the time on Colares Island, the objects would come closer and closer and closer as the time went by. And one of the objects would be more daring, come more closer, would be those, what we call the sport model, because they were small. I don't know if you had here a Carmanguia. Carmanguia had a small car, Carmanguia, like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. He compared it to a Carmanguia, a small one that would come, and he was absolutely sure that this object was manned, had crew inside of it. Now he was frustrated, but because he had his equipment and he took pictures of that, lots of that, and then he went back to the headquarters to develop the film, and nothing would come. And he repeated that several times and nothing would come. And eventually, he got the cooperation from the US military that were working in the same area, looking what the Brazilian military was doing. And he was given some films, some cameras, and instruction to operate them. And then he started making pictures of the sport model of UFOs. Isn't that something? So you can see by these several drawings that we're dealing with a number of formats of UFOs, a variety of shapes, probably a variety of civilizations working in that area. But these ones were the ones who used to attack people. Remember the drawing that I showed in the beginning? That this is the object that was seen by lots of people, including by Dr. Dalaides Cecim Carvalho, who became one of the most interesting victims that can talk to you about the whole cases in the Amazon. Now, some more. Now, this is also very interesting. This is a flying wing, such as the B-2 development were on Area 51. Now, let's see a few pictures. Unfortunately, folks, we have been able only to retrieve a few photos out of the 500 that were taken by the Brazilian Air Force, because they were all sent away to Brasilia, the federal capital, after the operation was prematurely terminated on December 1977, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Now, here are some pictures, more here, and this one, right, okay. This big one, according to William G. Holanda, was a mothership, was a big object filmed and photographed over the Amazon River during hours. That small one is just a disc-shaped one. We had these pictures even before William G. Holanda gave us his exclusive interview to the Brazilian UFO magazine. Now, I tell you why the operation was terminated. It started because of the cases became ugly by July and August, and in September the Brazilian Air Force decided to go there and see what's going on. And the military were asked to talk to people, to take pictures, and to engage. Can you believe that, Dennis? Engage. These were the specific orders. Engage in contact with whoever was beyond the phenomenon, was responsible for that. And they actually did that. Military do what they're told to. So they talk to people, they take pictures, hundreds of them, and William G. Holanda struggled as much as he could. He put lots of efforts in trying to establish contact with this whoever was beyond the phenomenon. And in one particular night, back in December, mid-December 1977, very hot in the Amazon, very humid, 100% in the air, 40 degrees, oh, terrible. He was with one of his subordinates, and in this small aluminum boat with one small engine, they were checking something that had happened during the day in that area. They were about to get back to the camping, which was a few miles away, a few kilometers away. And when they were starting to go back, an object, a cylinder-like, a very big one, right? An object just like this, which he described that had 100 meters in length, 100 meters high, just almost landed, almost touched ground. On the other side of the river they were in this small river, in one margin. The object almost touched ground on the other side of the bank river, but did not touch. It stayed there for a few minutes. And they were, what the hell? We never seen such a big one. And the guy that was with him said, "Let's go away, Captain." He was a captain at the time. "Let's go away. He's going to attack us. We're going to be killed. Let's go away." I said, "Don't freak out, boy. Be cool. Let's see what happens. They're here for a reason." This is his word when I interviewed him. And actually something happened, because out of that object, from the upper part of it, a small door was open. And an alien, just like us, 2 legs, 2 arms, a body, a head, but he was using a helmet, came floating from, can you imagine, 100 meters high? That's a building, a 34 floors building. Just came floating, and came in their direction, and it stayed floating in the air a few meters from them, from the military. And the creature, let's call it like this, through his helmet, had eyes that could be seen. And Wiener Zellanda, in that creature, it was described by him to me, started staring each other for a few minutes. And something went on. Some sort of communication that he could only understand weeks later. The creature then went back to the the spaceship, and with some noisy, the object went away. Okay, he was so excited, because he finally got what he was told to. He engaged in a contact. And he went back the other day to talk with his superior, Brigadier Portazio, at headquarters in Belém. And when he came there and told him, "Hey, we had a contact. We had a contact with them." And of course, his superior already knew that they were dealing with something out there of this world, something very advanced that comes from other planets. Immediately, the brigadier said, "Hold on, son. Wait a minute. You go back home. Don't go to the jungle again. Wait until tomorrow until I give you information about it." He kind of was like, what happened? But then he was told to stay quiet. He went back home and remained there. The other day, he went to talk to the brigadier who called him to come to his office at that headquarters. He was he's still very excited about his thing. And he was told to terminate entirely the Operation Saucer. He said, "But why? Now that we finally got to know them, and we can go on with this contact, we're going to finish? Yes, you are ordered to go back to the field, to get your men and all the material that has been produced, bring it all, don't leave anything, bring it all to headquarters, and handle to me by tomorrow all material that you have produced. This is it, nothing else." Now, why did the Brazilian Air Force decide to terminate Operation Saucer? Because they realized that they lost control over the things. A contact has been established. its consequences are unpredictable. Anything can happen. And of course, also the US military at that time helping the Brazilian military surely gave them an advice. It's better to let it go. It can go out of your hands, and there's nothing that can be done much than that. And the Operation Saucer ended because of that. But during this 4-month period, September, October, November, and December, 1,000 cases investigated, 2,000 pages produced of documentation, of which we have about 500, 500 pictures taken, of which we have about a dozen, 16 hours of films, of which we have none. Unfortunately, yet, because I haven't given up yet. Now, I interviewed the gentleman on June 1997. Hear me talking to him. I had a few more hair, I guess, at that time, and less fat. Anyway, we owe to this gentleman a lot. William Giolanda was a brave guy. When we met, it was like a immediate friendship. We started this friendship, and I realized that he wanted so much to take part in this movement that we're conducting in Brazil since that time, to pressure our authorities to come forward with the information about UFOs. And we engaged him in several talks all over the country. And he was scheduled to speak in the World UFO Forum that we organized back in December 1977, of which Glennis McKay was present, and he can report it to you. We have 70 speakers from 35 countries. And he was supposed to be one of the speakers, but unfortunately, after he had that experience in the Amazon, he went with lots of trouble with his wife, who would not accept his growing interest for this thing, and they eventually got separated. He got abducted a few times. He went into very strange experiences, and he kind of changed his personality in some way, even while he was still in the military. Now, being separated from his wife and then the kids, he remarried years later, was living in the town where I visited him in June 1997, and he was very depressed, had no many friends, no social life. He was living for his family, new family alone. And his depression was so intense that he had tried to suicide 3 times before. He was limping from one leg when I met him because that was the result of his last attempt. And me and my partner, Mark Antonio Petit, and later we introduced him to several other UFO researchers. And more than a witness, we want him to be a friend. That's actually what we did. He was a friend. We used to talk every day on the phone. He was a guy who gave a great contribution to the Brazilian UFO research, to the worldwide UFO research. But eventually, on October 2, 1997, unfortunately, he committed suicide. Some people say that he was suicided. No, it's rumors. He actually committed suicide for his personal reasons. Anyway, this is about the Operation Saucer, the sex act phenomenon, and the hardcore of the UFO phenomenon in the Amazon, which unfortunately showed that not all of our visitors are very friendly. But to show you another aspect of the UFO presence in the Amazon, let me show the story of these people that you're seeing there, those beautiful ladies from the tribe of Indians, native Brazilians, called the Kayapo. which is used to be a large nation of Indians, which had several branches, one of which is the Xikrin. Now, they have a particular tale attached to its culture for hundreds of years. And it's still alive and shows a different way of how foreigners, aliens, interact with Amazonian people. Now, they used to live in places like this. They still live in places like this, and deep in the jungle in a place called Haig Xingu, back in the north of Brazil, in the Amazon region. There used to be over than 20, some people say that they have been over than 30,000 in the past, but because of their contact with man, they have been reduced to a few hundreds. And yet, they keep their traditions. And among their traditions, they keep a ritual going through which they celebrate the coming in the fast of a man from outer world, from outer space. That man was called Bet Gororoti. Some people say Bet Kororoti, which is almost the same thing. Now, the Kayapo believe, especially the Xikrin, which is part of the Kayapo, believe that they have been visited by a man that was connected to him some way. It means the visitor was some kind of relative of them, and because of that, they still celebrate its coming. The story is simple. One day, a foreigner came from the sky in a large and bright boat. It landed somewhere in the jungle, and out of this boat, that all the Indians watched coming, they call boat of course, a man came off, and it was a tall man, white skin, very different than the Indian. It had a cup. A cup was a stick, like an electrical stick, to keep the Indians away. And the man decided to live by some waterfalls in the Montanhas Picuriti. Eventually, the warriors, the brave warriors of the tribe, decided to go and check what the hell he was doing there, and trying to engage in some sort of fight with him. And he would use his cup, electrical, to give them shocks. So, after a few attempts, the warriors, the brave warriors, the Kayapars, just gave up talking to him. And one day, he came to the village, and he started living with the Indians. It's very interesting because the story tells that Bet Kororoti even married one of the Indian girls and had kids. And one day, I guess he was full, had enough of what he's having there. He got his wife, he got his kids in that big canoe and the big boat and went away to the stars. Never to come back? No. He came back, according to the same tale, a few other times, and brought medicines to help the people that he left behind. And because of that generosity, these Indians believe that he is a relative and that he is coming one day to take them away, because the Indians also believe that they belong to somewhere else. They belong to the same place where that gentleman came from. And they celebrate that from the youngsters to the elders. They celebrate that yearly, believing that they will be taken. They do their meetings where they pass their traditions one into water, into water, into water. The wise man of the tribe, or the shaman, is called Gwei Baba, and the place where they meet is called Engob. Now the woman prepared their kids for that revelation that is yet to come, according to them. They never give up waiting. Well, sometimes they have a break, have a cigar, That comes with the duty of being a wise man, I guess. Anyway, their culture has this thing so intense, the story of the bad Colorado, so intense, that the Indians spend most of their day doing imitations, replicas of Babs Colorado cop, that big stick that he used to get the Indians away when they were trying to bother him. Now, this is very beautiful. This is one of the things that they say. Now, pay attention, folks. Base, right? They say the sky is the land of the people who lives above, and earth is in the sky of the people who live below. Isn't that something beautiful? They have that as a motto in their lives. Now, this is it, my friends. With this, I finished this talk about the UFOs in the Amazon. And if you have a few more minutes, and if I can buy 15 minutes out of your lunch, I can show you another very interesting case, very fastly, that happened just recently in Brazil, which is the Virginia case. Is that okay, Cheryl? Can I buy some of your lunch? Yes. All right then. Let me look for this here. Okay. Now, let's speak about the Virginia case. Well, you are all familiar with the Roswell case, right? Okay. I tell you something that's much bigger, much well documented, and much younger than the Roswell case. Now remember, Roswell happened in 1947, and became being investigated only 25 years later. Now we have a case in Brazil that happened in 1996, and it started being investigated in less than 24 hours after it happened. When I came to Australia, to Brisbane the first time, 1996, invited by Glennis, I spoke about this case. It was October 1996. We had only a few pieces of the puzzle. 10 years have passed, and we have a lot of pieces of the same puzzle. And you'll be amazed to see what is the development of this. Now, Virginia is a small town. Virginia means beans. Beans. A small town in south of the state of Minas Gerais, middle of Brazil. These are some pictures of the city. A creature was seen. And it all happened when the night of January 19th to January 20th, a Friday to a Saturday, the NORAD, North American Defense System, detected a UFO coming from space to somewhere in central Brazil. And as it came down and didn't go up, our authorities were informed and started tracking the object, which they determined that either landed or crashed somewhere close to Virginia. Radar was involved, and the facts were fully documented. No doubt about anything that I'm telling you about it. Now, at the middle of that night, almost down of January 20th, Saturday, 1996, back 10 years ago, a few witnesses, including this couple, Eurico and Oladina, saw this cylinder-like object, like a mini van, partially destroyed, coming down to Earth, releasing sparkles and smoke. This is the object that was captured on radars by the NORAD and the Brazilian system. Now, right in the next hours, when it was already day, like 6:30 a.m., 7:30 a.m., some people saw strange creatures, gave them lots of descriptions. The most reliable one is in the middle, in the low row, right? Some people saw strange creatures around in the neighboring area of the city of Virginia. Now, when people see that, people call the fire department. Because in Brazil, when you see a wild animal, an alligator, yeah, we have, just like we have here, we have alligators, snakes, mad dogs, whatever. We don't have kangaroos, but we're working on that. Okay, a big sum to Brazil, isn't it? And well, I guess it's the crime then. No, don't touch that. All right. Anyway, people saw these strange creatures over that area, close to where the object was spotted hours before by that couple. And they thought that those were strange monkeys or strange animals. They're bipeds. 2 legs, 2 arms, a body, but very short guys. Brown skin, grazy skin, big head, 3 large protuberances coming from these 2 portions of the head to the end of the head, and one in the middle. Big, red, round eyes. And they look like suffering. Now, some people even throw stones at it, grab stones and go away. You know, that kind of thing? Think that they were some kind of animals. Anyway, the fire department was put in action. At 7:30, it was called. But it only arrived at 10:30. And guess what? They were together with the one unity of the army installation nearby in the city of Três Corações, which is about 32 kilometers east, which has the nearest military installation in the entire area. There was no Air Force facility over there. This is why only the army was invited, or actually was engaged in helping the fire department guys to capture those creatures. One was easily captured because it offered no resistance whatsoever. It was captured with nets. It was placed in a box and sent away to another location. Here are some of the soldiers who took part in the capture procedures. Those are the cars used. That red truck that you see over there, the big one, that was the truck used to transport the creature. And these are Fireman Santos and Captain Alcantara, who, of course, denied the whole story. But we have managed to have access to the book where all the calls are registered. And when they have to go out to do something like to extinguish some fire here, to help someone there, to do something that the firemen do, everything is written down. And we have a copy of that show that they are lying because they have been on the spot. They have been asked by people, they have gone there, they have taken the creature to some other location. Now, the army, as I told you, is also involved. That is General Sérgio Coelho Lima, Sérgio Pedro Coelho Lima, the captain of that military installation as a school and sergeant in arms, the largest preparatory school for sergeants. People, soldiers to be sergeants in Brazil. They work together. The first alien captured that very morning, 10:30 a.m., was taken away by death road, removed immediately from the city of Virginia. But as several other creatures were seen, of course, it became obvious that operations of capture should continue trying to seize to get other creatures eventually in the area. It's when 3 girls entered this scenario. These are Katia, Liliane, and Valkyria. They used to be maids at someone's home in a neighboring area where it all happened, and they used to get together after to finish the work about 3:30 that afternoon. Was a Saturday, January 20, 1996, let's repeat. And they got together because they used to do that so they could walk together through an empty field to go to their home. A few kilometers away, they would walk there. At that particular afternoon, however, while going into this empty field, they saw one strange creature, just like the others reported in the morning, laying down, kneeling like this, close to a wall in an empty field. It was hurt, suffering, a nasty smell in the air, very bad, like rotten meat, ammonia, and the 3 girls ran. But one was kept behind a few more seconds. the youngest one, and could have a better look. And it described the creatures having the veins and arteries in the arm, shoulder, and neck very visible, like if he was suffering. The veins were purple and black, very visible. And the creature looked at her like, you know, like it was under the sun and suffering in our environment. But that is understandable. Now that's the place where the creature was seen. And the lower picture on the right, you see Katya showing how the creature was kneeling by the place. Okay, this is the first drawing that they did at that time. See horns, not exactly horns, but protuberances in the head. Big red round eyes. Now, a very brave family is involved because the girls, they arrived home and they said to their mother, "Mama, we just saw the devil." That's what they could figure out. What the hell would be that thing? Only devil for ignorant girls in the city of Virginia. Maids, very simple people. They think they saw the devil. So they said to the mama, and the mama said, "No devil is going to play with my kids." And she went there. Actually, she went to the neighbor who had a car and said, "Please take me there." And they went there just to see that there was nothing left. The creature was not there anymore. But the smell, the bad smell, was still in the air. Now, this family suffered a lot. They were very humble, but they suffered. They were pursued by people, journalists, all sorts of people. They have been told that they are crazy, that they want fame or something, and they never got a single cent. Actually, they lost. They lost jobs. They were ridicularized, how do you say? Ridiculed in their community and everything. And once, at least once, there was a bribe attempt by 3 men dressed, guess what? In black. Came to them and said, "What are your girls?" Came to the mother. "What are your girls dreaming? Do college? Clothes? Go to the Disneyland? Whatever you dream of. We can provide. The only thing you have to do, you have to go to a local TV station and say it was just a joke. That you didn't mean anything." Because their story became nationally known as the girl who saw the second creature. Because it is not one thing alone. It comes in a package. The story is all very reliable, and they are some of the best witnesses that we have of that case. And I show you the other ones. But after I show the second capture. Now, as all the forces, military police, and yes, we have those there, civilian police, federal police, army, and fire department, all together, going all over the town, searching for all the creatures. They knew that at least one was at large, which was the one saw by the girls. And they were searching for something, for creature, for whatever. And eventually, a patrol, how do you call it? Patrol? A car patrol? Car patrol with 2 policemen in civilian clothes in a car with dog marks almost run after what is believed to be the second creature. This is the drawing. That's the car. See? In the drawing you see marks, but there were no marks. This car was disguised. That's the car. And there were 2 guys in the car. One driving, and we drive on the proper side of the car, in the proper side of the road, excuse me. And the other one was sat at the passenger seat that is on the right side of the car, right? Okay. And here sat, he almost ran over the creature. They break the car, and this gentleman who was sitting in the passenger seat went out the car and grabbed the creature with his bare hands. clothes, no nothing. And got back to the car and believe it, he sat at the passenger seat and put the creature in his lap. And they went to this small health unit. It was Saturday night, about 9 p.m. And there was a doctor on duty over there, which is very rare for Brazil. Now that's a place where it's used to help poor people in the neighboring areas of their cities. And generally, they don't have medicines, they don't have doctors, they don't have nurses, they don't have nothing. But that particular night, there was a doctor. And when the doctor saw Marco Elixerezi, the guy who captured the creature with his bare hands, entering the place, he looked at it and said, "Oh, come on, take it away from here, Chapi. We're not able to take care of human beings here. What to say about this? This is not even human. Take it away, we're not prepared for that." And he took it away to a hospital. And by the radio, they had already informed to the other forces that they would be taking the creature to that hospital, which is in the middle of the city of Virginia. That guy that you see there is Adilson Zierleite, who used to be the principal, the director of that hospital. Now, by 9:30, he arrived at the hospital, the car, the two guys, Marco Elixerezi with the creature arrived at the hospital. They were full of other cars from the other police forces, from the army, from trucks, everything. And guess what? This is the middle of the town. It was a Saturday night in big summer in Brazil. Everybody's on the street, having ice cream, having a shot, having a beer, talking. Everybody in town saw lots of people, lots of military and police forces getting together. And so, well, something must have been going on. And this was one of the main mistakes that the military did. Okay. Anyway, while in the hospital, the creature was taken to one of the units, the maternity, which was isolated for a few hours, so the creature could remain there. Later on, at the end of this, I'll speak what happened there. But it became obvious that in a few minutes that the creature couldn't stay there because it was too crowded, too many people. That's a public hospital, not a private hospital. So lots of people go there. So they took away to this second hospital called Humanitas, which is a private and more discreet and more away from downtown, where the second creature was kept and eventually died in the next hours, but was kept for more than 24 hours. Here's how it was treated, just a description of what they tried to do while it was there. When it was dead and about to be transferred, lots of doctors got together. This is a drawing made after someone described it to us, And this doctor got together to discuss what to do. One of them came close to it, called one of the military and said, "Come to see something very interesting." And took the creature tongue off the mouth like this big. And when it released, it was like a roll of film from the past, photograph film that would roll back to the mouth. Very interesting thing. The smell was so intense that they had to use masks. It's all description given by very reliable witnesses, people that were among these doctors. And guess what? Just after it all happened, during the day, American military and doctors were sent by the U.S. consulate in São Paulo, which is about 300 kilometers, to Virginia. They registered in hotels. They ate at restaurants during the procedures. They stayed, some of them, for 2 days in town. We have both tracked, all documented. This is why I tell you that we have so much documentation about the Virginia case that it's at least 10 times better documented than the Roswell case itself. It's much, much bigger, much, much bigger. But yet, lots of portions of the worldwide UFO community don't see it. And I'm trying as other of my colleagues are trying to make people understanding. This is one of my attempts. Well, the creature died and was removed. It was put in a coffin, a wooden coffin, then a plastic bag over it. It was assembled 7 teams of military, different teams, and from those teams were sent to different places in Virginia just as a form of disguise. You understand? Then, from the seven different teams, it were selected when they got back few of their members who formed the team that took the creature away. So the 7 teams were assembled and sent to several places in town just to in an effort not to let them know what they were doing, what they were transporting, and to where. And only a few of these people in the 17 were put together in the very team that took in a convoy, not as big as this, it's just as an example, to the University of Campinas, which is in the state of São Paulo, where it has an annex, a clinic hospital, and in the basement of it, there are some laboratories that were used during the dictatorship era in Brazil that ended by the 70s to torture people by the military. And that now is used, those installations, those labs, are now used by a highly trained team of forensic doctors who can perform any type of analysis over there. There's nothing secret over there going on. But these were very big installations underneath the Hospital of Clinics and the University of Campinas. It was to that place, and it was to those forensic doctors that the creature, the second creature, and the first creature before were taken to and delivered. Now, as I told you, the investigation started immediately. They didn't take long. They started immediately because we were very lucky in this case, because this gentleman in the bigger photograph, Ubirajara Franco Rodrigues, who's a lawyer and also a professor of law in a local university, he was the co-editor of the Brazilian UFO magazine. And guess what? He lived in Virginia, only a few blocks away from where it happened. So we were very lucky. And he started investigating the case immediately in the next 24 hours. And just after he realized that something very big was going on, and he became to that conclusion by talking to the girls that you've seen, and a few other witnesses who all reported the same type of creature. And then he knew that the military were involved. So did the fire department. He started making inquiries in the next hours. So in the, let's say in 48 hours to 52 hours, he already had a great picture of what was going on. And he called some other researchers to come over and to investigate. In a matter of weeks, over than 60 of our top UFO researchers in the country, led by that gentleman, would be investigating the Virginia case and collecting information all over. At least 100 witnesses, first-hand witnesses, were interviewed. And not only Brazilians investigated the case, but also some foreigners went to Brazil as well and investigated, such as John Mack, who has been in Virginia. Roger Lear has been in Virginia. Jacques Vallée hasn't been in Virginia, but has been to Brazil and was informed of the case. But Pratt has been in Virginia. And the three below, our late friend, who died a couple of years ago, Graham Birdsall, and Stanley Friedman, and John Carpenter, they all were immediately involved and information that were coming from Virginia. Now, we owe a lot of information to the gentleman, the second gentleman in the upper row, and also to John Mack, to the late Dr. John Mack. He went to Virginia just after it happened, and you know him, he was a professor at Harvard University School of Medicine. He was a professor of psychiatry. He had many books. He was an expert in psychiatry and also in abductions. And this gentleman has been talking to the girls and a few other witnesses. And he once said, I bet my diploma, my certificate, my career, that these girls are telling the truth. No doubt about it. Now, we also owe a lot to Roger Lear, the second on upper row. And I'll tell you why in a few minutes. We're about to finish now because I know you were hungry. So am I. Okay. Many other cases were reported during the other days after it happened. You know, close encounters such as balls of light coming over the people, trying to take them, small probes coming, objects being photographed all along that road that takes from Virginia to the nearest city, Tres Corazones, where the School of Sergeant-in-Arms is located. That military installation, the army installation that I told you about. Now, investigations were performed including aircrafts. Now, you see those small pictures? Those were meetings that the UFO researchers had with the press. And the press were very cooperative. The press helped us a lot, especially when we needed to put some pressure on the military, which were hiding the information. Now, another witness another witness informed that he was driving close to the road, that road that you've seen before, at that very morning of January 20, when he saw some army trucks going into some place, and he decided to go after them. He was by car, he decided to go after them, and he saw some wreckage being collected by the guys, the military guys, and put on top of the truck. And when he was noticed, the military came to him and said, go away from here right now, and don't tell anybody what you've seen. And he immediately flew away from there, and he stopped at a gas station ahead to have some coffee. And even there, the military went and once again threatened him. You are supposed to forget everything that you saw, and if you don't, you're going to face serious troubles. Now, this is the place where he saw the wreckage being put on top of the truck in what is called Fazenda Maiolini. And other witnesses and some rumors also appeared. I'm going as fast as I can, so I'm not going to give you much details. But some people reported that they have heard military chasing small creatures and shooting them dead, just like you've seen in this picture. The strange thing is that they reported two different types of creatures. This thing is like that, let me tell you. The Virginia cases, much like most of the grave cases of ufology, is like a big puzzle, right? You say puzzle here as well as the United States? Puzzle, right, thank you. With 1,000 pieces. Now, we are 100% of this much, because we have all these pieces this much. We don't have much here, here, here. Maybe we have here, here. Not here, maybe here. But of what we have, we are 100% sure. And this is what we're talking about. This is what we're telling here. Now, of those things that we don't have 100% information, like this, we put as rumors. And this is rumors. This is not something to be taken as part of the Virginia case, please. Okay. Well, the military tried to put this under control. General Lima, Major Santos, and Major Causa, all of them had great explanations for the case. That gentleman over there, he dared to tell the press that people shouldn't be as excited about this. No creature whatsoever, no creature was captured, nothing happened. What happened was that there was a pregnant dwarf. A pregnant dwarf that had been taken by the fire department to the hospital. This is it, nothing else. Amazing, isn't it? This case, I had another title for this slide, was The Three Stooges. I started to change. Now we have documents, secret document that surfaced eventually, telling the whole story. Now, the autopsy that was taking place in Campinas. Now, you would suppose that the creatures, when they were taken, they were dead, of course. They were taken, of course. They were analyzed. And, as I told you, they were taken to be analyzed by the top forensic doctors in Brazil, which had as a chief this gentleman, Fortunato Badam Palhares. Fortunato Badam Palhares he's not anymore, but he used to be one of the most respected forensic doctors in the country. And he was the guy to whom the creatures were handed to. Now, of course, he denies the whole thing. But after a few weeks, he was given a lecture about his profession in a law school for some team of students about his profession, forensic stuff, law stuff, and this and that. And eventually someone at the back said, "Hey, doctor, I'm sorry to question you about this. It's not what you're talking about. It's a different subject, but I have to ask you because everybody here is telling that you were involved in the analysis and autopsy of alien creatures captured in Virginia just a few weeks ago. What do you have to tell us about it?" He was taken by surprise. He was speechless, and he thought, "Well, my man," with almost the same words, "Well, my man, I would love to answer to that question, but I cannot. Ask me again in 15 or 20 years, and I'll tell you about it." He doesn't have to answer anything else. He already did. Now, remember the guy that I told you that grabbed the creature with his bare hands? He was a 23 years old military policeman that worked for, we call P2, always 2. It means the intelligence service of police. He's not actually capturing bad guys or something. He's in intelligence. Most of the time, he works disguised. He died 20-some days after he captured the creature of Tsitsinha. And we have information of another officer that also died for having contact with that witness. And the military refused to give to the family for an entire year this boy's death certificate. He left a pregnant woman. Right? And he was not even on service during that Saturday night. He was on leave at home, resting. He was called upon to go immediately. That's an emergency. He had to go to work. And he was told by his superior, "You go and search for something strange and capture it and bring it to us." So everybody else were given the same order. And a strange thing, nobody briefed them precisely of what they could expect, of what they could find, of what they could meet, and what precautions they should take. It's amazing. That was totally irresponsible. And eventually this guy died of septicemia. Now we have the report from the doctor that only after a few years decided to talk. He was the one who treated the man. Here are copies of the death certificate full of mistaken, given by the army only because the press did a lot of pressure. So did we, the UFO researchers. And on the other side, you have the reports of his blood test. Now, here's the story. On January 20, Shiraz took part in the capture, and after some days, a little rumor appeared in his armpit, his left armpit. Abscess drainage was done. The hospital, Bom Pastor, another hospital in the city of Virginia. Just 2 weeks after that, a little bit more than that, he was taken to the hospital regional, another hospital, the same one to where he took the creature that he captured, but have to be removed back to the hospital Bom Pastor with severe pain in his back. There was was examined by cardiologist Renat. Tests were carried out, and 2 antibiotics were prescribed, penicillin and gentamicin. They are very simple ones. They kill just about all germs that you may have. On the next day, his status was unstable and eventually got worse. On the other day, he had several spent a day with several degrees of fever, a high fever and pains, but yet at a reasonable status. On the other day, he started with signals of cyanosis, which is a bacteremia with possible septicemia. He was transferred, he was given a test for HIV, negative, and after 6 hours in the intensive care unit, that young boy, 23 years old, just married, pregnant wife, which was on leave at home, when he was asked to go to look for something strange, that guy died. Tragically. The cause of death never was mentioned in his death certificate. Amazing. Now that's what Dr. Furtado said, that in less than 20 days, 3 bacteria attacked the officer. One was in his arm some days before, but was cured. Also, he had a urinary infection with Enterobacter, which caused his death. Now, this is stupid infection that we can have any day, any time. But if you take any pill, antibiotics, you are healed. Not him, because he had his immune system totally destroyed. Does that ring the bell for the food? Can I get 2 more minutes? 20 minutes? Wait, all right. Because the worst comes now. The worst comes now, and I'm about to finish. I'm sorry. I'm excited because I came such a long way. I have such good material to present. And you have to see it. Well, let me tell you something. Remember I told you that Mark Licheres took the preacher to the hospital, the regional hospital? Okay. There was a doctor, and the neighboring ER room on duty. That guy, that doctor, was an orthopedic. He was asked by the military to come and try to see if he could do something for the alien body, laying down in that branch of the hospital regional that was isolated. He said, okay, I'll go and try to do something. When he went there, he realized that that wasn't human, and he couldn't do much. Now, this is what he described, that the alien body had different kinds of injuries. The creature was still alive, as he recalled, at the moment it was at the hospital, but died just a few hours later when he was transferred to the other hospital. He looked like suffering, had a physiological constitution beyond our medicine's knowledge. This was given by a doctor with 30 years of medicine career. He was anthropomorphic, it means had the same format as the man, like you have there. Now, here are some of that doctor remarks. That all of a sudden, when he was trying to heal the the creature, and he was very frustrated because he didn't know how to start, what to do. That wasn't a human thing. He wasn't used. He didn't have training. But anyway, he tried to do something. He's a doctor, for God's sake. He tried. And he said that eventually something happened and the environment became yellowish. His vision became very clear. His hands were automatically driven by the creature to deal with it. The light in the room had suddenly changed, become yellowish. His perception of the environment increased somehow. It shows slow movements and light signals. Now he could understand. After this became clear, he could understand that the creature was alive, that had some slow movement, that has its life signs. And he could not tell that the creature was breathing or not, but he had this feeling that he could have helped the creature if it was a little before, a little earlier. At that point, wasn't much that he could do for that creature. Now, this is the city of Virginia now. They built this monument to celebrate the case. It's a big water reservoir, water box, right? The bus station, just like that, see? Even in school, see the other picture, even in school is like a flying saucer. They're trying to do just right like Roswell. And we're trying to keep the public always informed about it. We have published a book. We have published 2 magazines at least about covering all the case. I believe I have a few issues of the second magazine. And this is what we're doing. We're trying to warn people that the Virginia case is very serious. It's not a matter of competition with the Roswell case, of course not. But we have to realize how important it is and how important it is to spread all over the world. Because we were lucky to know everything we know about this case because we have someone living just a few blocks from where it happened. If it had happened in another town, perhaps we would never know. And this is my point. How many other Virginia cases are there? How many other Roswell cases are there all over the world, but have not been found, have not been discovered yet? This is what I mean, and this is my message, and thank you very much, Mary. I appreciate the time. I'm sorry for taking so much of your time.